Hey friends, welcome back to this week's episode of the Hopecast with Rachael Flick. I'm bringing you part two of my interview with Taya Kyle, wife to her late husband, Chris Kyle, known as the American Sniper. She has a ministry with the marriages of people in the military and first responders. And she is talking with me today about some of the processes and just what grief really looks like over the long haul. Taya, welcome back to this week's episode.
Thank you. Thank you for having me again.
Yeah, I love our conversation. I'm glad we get to continue it.
Me too.
So first of all, I didn't say that correctly. Correct me on, you said TACF is the name of your,
TACF.org, yeah.
okay. And what do you do specifically?
So we have first responders and military, active duty or retired. They apply online to be part of our program. And then we spend 2 years with them.
Wow.
And yeah, it's so cool because we work from a place of strengths. So the first thing they do is they take a strengths finder.
Nice.
And then they do one-on-one coaching online with a coach. And they work from a place of strengths on different areas of marriage and communication, intimacy, all the things. And then they'll go into a small group women for the women, small group men's for the
Okay.
men's, and they love that. And then, and during the strength training, we send them on a 3-night, 4-day getaway. And the
I
coach,
love this. That is
right?
so great.
Yeah. And then the coach talks to them about what are things that could sabotage your trip and like, how are you going to lean into each other and using your strengths? What should this person do during the trip if ABC happens? It's like, um, problem solving. Then they regroup and talk about it with the coach afterward. And they always say they don't have time to get away and they can't figure it out, but
Mm.
then they do, and they're like, "Oh my God, we have to do this more often. Like
Yeah.
this was amazing, right?" And then we have a program for the couples, so 4 couples and a coach that do the small group couples. So it's just been,
I love that.
yeah, it's been a blessing, and um, what we hear is it's saving lives. Baylor University studies our programs. We've got a 99% success rate.
Wow.
It's because it's not rocket science, but it is important because they're different tools than the civilians can use. Civilians use a set of tools in their marriage, but those don't work for service marriages. So we're giving them the
Interesting.
tools that will work.
And
Yeah.
do you feel like they're appropriate for first responders and military or specifically military?
No, they are. We do first responders and military. And that's one of the cool things about the small groups is the firefighter, policeman, spec ops guy, army guy,
Mm.
any level, when they get together and talk, they see similarities and differences in their experiences. And they see how much of their marriage is the same, even though
Mhm.
their jobs are different, but the
Yeah,
dynamic and the difficulties are the same. And they learn the tools and encourage each other, and they stay in touch after that. Like they just become, because they
absolutely.
can be completely vulnerable. It's not your
Mm.
work group, it's not your neighbor, right? There's no risk to them sharing everything right
Mm.
out of the gate. And so they get to the truth of things pretty quickly. It's awesome.
Where is this available? Like, where
So
do
it's
you
across the country.
locational?
We
Okay.
just do online. And so
Okay.
it's all video, which at first I thought, but COVID kind of switched us into that because
Yeah.
we used to do in person stuff, which was more expensive. So we can help more
Mhm.
people, and we have a tight knit team. So I mean, the coaches that we use, it's 4 coaches, and they're all our people, and they, are in this fully. So it's not like we contract multiple people, and I mean,
Mm.
it's very, they're very good at what they do, and they've been doing it and have a love for it and a heart for it. And so it's really cool.
I'm gonna look into that more because
Yeah,
I know it is so hard on marriage. And
it is.
do they? I'm assuming they do, but address like PTSD in marriage and how that affects
Yep,
the
all of it.
relationship.
Yes, all of it. The
Yeah.
only thing we don't do, like if there was abuse or active suicidal things,
Yeah.
you're not going to be able to work on the marriage until you get
Mm.
those things handled. So we refer out for those things, and they can come back when, because it's not realistic to work on your marriage if you've got abuse
No.
issues or
No.
active suicidal um, attempts at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. I
But
totally
suicidal
get it.
ideation is common for
Uh-huh.
spouses, and so we are really good at just addressing that up front, and
Mm.
um, not making a stigma, but just a thing that we talk about.
That is so needed. That
Yeah.
is so needed. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so 12 years. I
Yes.
remember, um, I don't know, that just seemed like an eternity to me
Hmm.
when I lost my, like the idea of getting out even a couple years seemed like so far away. What does your process look like to this point? Like, where is grief in your ebb and flow? How, what have been some key points in that for you?
Yeah, it's a great question because in the beginning I thought, okay, it's going to be about 4 or 5 years, is what I was thinking. I just need to get to the 5 year mark. And
Mhm.
so that's what I told myself. I'll be better then. And you do get progressively better, and you have
Mhm.
times where you're hit and, blindsided, and of course other things or other people are coming at you. And so it's not a perfect line. But I remember around 4 or 5 years, my therapist, who I love, she said traumatic unexpected deaths are more like 7 years.
Okay.
And so, yeah, which you're right there. And so I said, oh, okay, right. It was like, oh, I've got more to go.
More
And
time.
you're right. But I remember along the way, there were times when I said, oh, I think I'm good. Like, I think I've really gotten it. I think I'm in a real good
Mm,
place, and it's almost comical when I look back because I so badly wanted to
mm.
be at a place where I'm like better.
Yeah.
And, um, and I would have people tell me, Taya, you are so much better than you were. Do you remember, XYZ? And I'd be like, oh my God, I forgot about that. You're
Mhm.
right. I am better. So there are times where I felt like I'm doing great. And there were times where I was like, I'll never be better. And people would encourage me. And I remember one time, asking a friend and saying, I feel like I'm doing really, I think a lot better. And what do you think? And she said, very lovingly said, you're not there. You're not
Mm.
where you think you are yet. And that's when I was like, I need more help. And
Yeah.
I was sad because I so badly wanted to be
Yeah.
better, but you lose sense of sometimes your progress or lack thereof because
Yeah.
I felt like I was just running and sprinting and trying and all different kinds of therapy and all different things. And my kids were on the road with me for homeschooling, and we had a teacher
Mm.
travel with us. And what I've learned so, so, so much. But recently, in these last 2 years, 2 to 3 years, my daughter and I have figured so many things out that were so hurtful to her, that were still
Mm.
plaguing her. She needed me to stop. Just stop moving, stop doing
Mm.
things, sit with me and do nothing with me. That's what I
Mm.
need. And for the longest time, I was like, we just have to learn. We have to learn on the fly. We have to go. We have to keep
Mm.
charging. You better just like step up or it's not, I had this thing
Yeah.
of there's got to be one way. By the way, at the same time, I mean, yes, she was still going to counseling and we were still doing things. It's not like, I mean, we were still making efforts, but I think it's like a more profound, deep stopping. Stop and watch
Mm.
TV with me, mom. Like,
Mm.
stop and do
Be
nothing with
present.
me. Be present
Yeah.
doing. And I kept thinking, well, I'll stop and we'll have deep conversations. I'll stop and we'll do
Yeah.
something together, but really just stop and watch TV with you.
Mhm.
Like where's the productivity in that? And she taught me
Yeah.
so much because that is what she needed. And she's so protective by nature that she wanted Colton and I to be okay.
Mm.
Even from, 6 and 7 years old, she was
Yeah.
worried about everybody else, but she was so, quiet and silly and kind and trying to encourage that we really missed the mark of how her suffering
Hmm.
was existing for her. And so she didn't want to ask for what she needed because she decided at some point it couldn't be important enough because ours was. She could see us suffering. And so she put that first. And we, for a while, I mean, it kind of ramped up and we had this break where it went, everything's not right. And I just had this breakdown of like, what has happened? It's not working. And by the grace of God, we stopped and we figured it out. And I mean, the other day she was saying, she goes, Mom, it's so hurtful when people say things about you. This was this weekend. She said,
Mm.
and I feel like sometimes it's twice as bad because I'm not only protective of you as my mom, but as my best friend.
Mm.
And I was like, like she is my
Wow.
heart. And
Wow.
and she and Colton are super close. McKenna and Colton are very close. They've been through a lot together. They're so loving. Like, we hosted a wedding at our house this weekend, and there was the father daughter dance, and
Mm,
McKenna was with me most of the night, but I guess she did some. Maybe she went to the bathroom, and Colton's fiance Carrie was standing there, and I came up and I put my arm around her and just hugged her. I said, "Is it making you a little emotional?" Thinking about. And
mhm,
she said, "A little bit." And then McKenna walked up to me on the other side. So Carrie was here. McKenna came up, and she was watching, and the tears just started to like fill her eyes.
mm,
And I went, "Oh, baby!" And so I had both my girls, like this, and then
mhm,
Colton walks up, and he looks and he just puts his arm around McKenna, and he said, "I love you." And she
mm.
was like, "I love you too." And he'll be the one to dance with her and at her wedding and walk her down
Yeah.
the aisle and all that. But so so how is grief, right? It's
Mhm,
something that we have learned in different times, in different stages, in different ways. And I thank God that these kids are who they are. I'm always so grateful because they are deeply feeling, deeply kind and caring, and deeply loving, deeply faithful. And so we've cared for each other and learned about each other through it all, and learned a lot about life, a lot about human nature, a lot about the ugly side of
mm,
humanity, a lot about the beautiful
yeah,
side of humanity. It's just been on like high volume.
mm,
How do you feel about that? I mean, you're 7 years out. What do you?
yeah. Like, my life doesn't look anything like I expected. Like, I really thought that well, I thought that I could, like, expert my way through grief, right? Like, if I
Yeah,
did a
yeah.
really good job and I
Mhm.
grieved correctly and I read the right books and I went to therapy, that I could just, like, supercharge it, you
Yeah,
know? And I'm
me
like,
too.
"These people with their second year is harder. Who are they? They're not even trying," you know? Um, and in some ways, it really was. It was harder because the shock wears off, and now
Mhm.
you're doing it all again without that, like, psychological numbing in some
Yeah,
ways. And they say it takes 3 to 5 years to begin to rebuild your life,
yeah,
and I would say it took me until, like, I remember around 4.5 years, I was like, "Oh, we've got a little groove. I have more days of sunshine than rain.
yeah,
I don't feel that overwhelming despair." But it took a really long time. And
yeah,
I had trauma in my childhood where it, like, all, like, I really think Micah was my steel rebar in my house of cards. And when
yeah,
he was gone, everything else,
yeah,
came crashing down. And so there wasn't a single area of my life that went untouched
yeah,
by grief. And that's probably true for everybody. But I mean, there's just nothing was standing in the
yeah,
wake of his death. And so that's encouraging to hear that 7 year thing, actually, because I have even just this year, I feel like my friend asked me, she's like, "Do you think you're out of survival mode?" And I was like, I think I'm out of survival mode. Like, just, clinging by my fingertips. And so,
yeah.
and yet, so Mike is February 5th. I think our anniversaries are pretty close.
Yes.
And so for me, like, December through January to his anniversary is like, I'm just heavy. I'm fatigued with grief. Even if I'm
Yeah,
not actively, like, sad, my body's sad. My body feels it,
yeah,
And somewhere around Valentine's Day, I kind of feel myself, like, start to pop to the surface, right?
yeah,
So um, I enjoyed the holidays with my family this year.
yeah.
And that was really cool because a
They
lot
were,
of times I've just gritted my way through them.
yes,
Um, but still, it didn't feel like my heart was whole at the same time, if that makes sense.
total sense. Yeah, 100%. And
Yeah.
I know what you mean when you have a moment where you go, I think I feel good, like genuinely
Hmm.
good.
Yeah.
And it's such a blessing, and it's odd, right?
Yeah, it does, because you're so used to it being hard. Yeah.
Yes. And it's like you're
Hmm.
joyful, and it's also this moment of like, I feel so happy. And isn't there a part of you that also goes, oh, like how tragic or sad that I didn't
Yeah.
feel that, I
Yeah.
mean, I'm all about embracing the joy, don't get me wrong, but there's a moment, I think, and it's only a moment, it doesn't last, but there's a moment where I sometimes go, oh, wow, that's a lot of years that it was
Hmm.
really hard. And
Mhm.
I don't know, have you ever looked back and looked at the girl you were then? Like, take yourself out of yourself and look at her. Do you just have such compassion for her? Like the
Yeah.
young you 7 years ago?
I just I is a different woman.
Yeah.
Like, she didn't know what she didn't know, and she
Yeah.
was trying so hard. I do have compassion for her.
Yeah.
I It's weird because you can never go back to her.
Right.
Like she's, like, encapsulated in time,
Yeah.
and you can remember who you were then, but, like, that death, it changes you forever, and that's sad too. It's like you have to grieve her too.
Yes, I think that's true. I'm a much better person. And I don't know if you have moments like this, but I think we all do. And I try not to sit in these moments, but I also have learned that I used to try to say, if it's not productive, I'm pushing it away. And now I'm like, no, because I've learned to say it's productive in a different way, to acknowledge it, and
Mhm.
not live in it, but to let it exist instead of trying to
Yeah.
crush it if I don't like
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And, um, and I think there's this, sometimes this thought of, I've learned so much. What would it have been
Mhm.
like to be with Chris having learned so much? You
Right.
know, if I
Like,
could be me today
what
with
would the
him.
relationship be like if you were both still together?
Yeah, but we
Yeah.
wouldn't be, right? Because we wouldn't have
Right.
evolved in the way that we have. And
Yeah.
um, I sometimes wish I could bring my best self to him, but that's
Mm.
also people who live together. Ideally, what I always say is, no grumpy old couples. Like, I am not buying that.
Yeah.
The ideally, you have
Yeah.
worked on it so long, and it
Mhm.
worked on it in a way that brought lots of joy, right?
Mhm.
And you got through the difficulty, but you worked. So you should be your happiest ever, really, when you're older,
Mm.
because you've worked on knowing each other and loving each other well. And
Yeah.
um, so that's my ideal world. And I really try not to spend too much time in those what ifs, because
Mm.
it is what it
Yeah.
is, right?
Yeah.
And
Well, I wonder if he'd, like, even like me now because, like, I can get some stuff done. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Like I had to level up. I'm sure you can
yes,
relate to that where it's
yes,
like, "Oh, I'm bad at managing finances? No more."
yeah,
"Oh, I don't know
yeah,
how to get a new roof put on the house? Sucks to be me. I better
yeah,
figure it out."
yes,
And I let him. I'll bet, like, being in the military, you had to take on a lot of that because he was gone more. But I let Micah do it, and
yeah,
I was happy to let him do it. And now I'm
yeah,
like I've been on dates, where the guy'll go to the side of the traffic, right? And
yeah,
and
yeah.
I'm almost like, what are you doing?
Do you know
Because
how strong I am?
I'm like, hey, I'm concealed carry right now. Like,
Yeah,
I got a pit bull. I mean, I appreciate it because
yeah,
it's just you learn to, like, take care of yourself,
yeah. You're like, I'll protect you, buddy. Like, you have no idea.
Yeah, and it's like finding that soft side sometimes is like, can I do that again in the
Yeah.
future?
It
Yeah.
is interesting. I wonder what you'll find. I'm still not healed in that way, because I could almost cry asking
Mhm.
you. But I wonder what you'll find on the other side if you do love again, and
Yeah.
find. I've got a friend who was a widow and found someone that is just a great match for her, and it feels like a different life for her,
Mm,
right? And she's a
yeah.
different person, and so this, her love now um, is great, but there are definitely two of her, right? The one that was
Mhm.
married to this guy, and who she is today, married to
Mhm.
this guy. I wonder what you'll find, but I applaud you for having
Yeah.
the courage to try and to date. I
I
don't have
have
that.
I've gone on so many dates, and just because I was like, I wanna throw open the door, I wanna let the Lord do what he wants to do,
Good for
right? Like,
you. Yeah.
I wanna be open, I wanna be available, I don't wanna, like, seek my type, and
Yeah.
for the love, I've got this first responder type, it's ridiculous, like, I
Can't help it.
they'll be, like, in a different career now, and they'll be like, "But yeah, but for 20 years, I was a first responder," and I'm like, "Of
Yeah.
course you were, of
Yeah, of
course you
course
were."
you are. Yeah.
But I just, like, I feel like I got to the end of my capacity to be on an app, and
Yep.
it was more draining than it
Yeah.
was life-giving,
Yeah.
and it's interesting, I felt some peace of, like, I'm giving my energy to other things. Raising
Yeah.
teenagers is a Herculean task, and
Yep.
being emotionally available for them. And
Yeah.
I want to put my energy other places, and I'm open. But
Yep.
I'm like, Lord, you might have to deliver him via Prime on my doorstep,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I just don't want to look. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I don't
Like,
blame
I
you.
did it. They say, well, you can't find somebody if you're sitting on your couch. And I'm like, I
Right.
didn't sit on my couch. I
Yep.
went to a lot of dinners. I
Yeah.
tried.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, it's I don't know. I would have
Yeah.
sworn to you, or I told my friends when Micah died, I was like, I'll bet I'll remarry in like 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
And if you would have told me that 7 years later, I'd be like, no, I'm
Yeah.
good. I'm
Yeah.
good. Like, I'm
Yeah.
comfortable. Okay, this is a specific one for you because I've
Okay.
gotten this so many times. Men who are intimidated by Micah's story, and they're like,
Mhm.
you have a hero in your life and there's no way I could ever fill those shoes. Even though I don't
Mhm.
want somebody to. I'm not
Yeah.
looking for a Micah 2.0, but like,
Right.
I just wonder, has anybody ever reflected that thought to you?
People have said that it would be hard for me to find someone else because it would be hard for anyone to fill Chris's shoes.
Mm.
And one of my dear friends, the sheriff, he says, well, they're just going to have to bring their own shoes.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, you're not, like you said, you're not looking for
Yeah.
somebody to fill Micah's shoes. You want somebody to bring their
Mhm.
own shoes. And what
Mhm.
I find interesting is that I think, and I could be wrong, but I think sometimes people will tell me about a guy, or a guy will present himself with qualities that are like
Mhm.
Chris.
Mm.
And I understand that because, on the one hand, maybe they think, well, if that's what you like, you would like this, right?
Mhm.
And like you said, God help you, you have this type, right? But
Yeah.
but for me, I'm like, I don't. It was just this interesting mix of a human being,
Mhm.
and I I couldn't. You couldn't duplicate him. You can't duplicate anybody,
Yeah.
and um, and it wasn't just one thing or another, and I mean, people know that too, but I don't know. Rachel, you're really, I think, far ahead of me in your openness there. Like I said, I've actually gone to, I've had some therapy, and I might have to have more because I can feel it in my stomach and my chest
Mm.
tightening and in my
Mm.
throat to cry,
Yeah.
even just suggesting it.
That's a
And
good idea.
I remember
Mm.
somebody at one point, she said, well, what about when people ask you about dating? And I said, it actually makes me want to throw up. And like, literally, it was a
Oh.
good friend of mine. And she goes, well, that's not normal. And I just started laughing, and I was like, well, I mean, considering, and she goes, no, that's not normal. Like, I don't care what you've been through, that is not normal. And I was like, really? She goes, yeah, you need it coming out. So I did. So I got the counseling, and she got me through the point of feeling nauseous,
Mm.
when that, which is good.
That's good. That's next steps. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I'm like, well, okay, so
Uh,
clearly, like you were saying, your body keeps the score, right? There's a little
mhm.
book on that, and it's true. Your body carries trauma
Mhm.
in different places, and so my protective mechanisms, as another therapist told me, you don't go grocery shopping and pick the coping mechanism you want. It's
Yeah.
what your body does. It figures out
Mhm.
the ways that it's going to protect you from ever feeling that way again.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
or like sometimes in your case, your body might be saying, don't you ever be this alone again. Find someone.
Mhm.
Our bodies
Mhm.
do different things. And that's why I feel like, I hope that I can confidently say I would never judge a widow. And I mean this to say, if she told me, Taya, I went out and slept around after my husband died, I would say, yeah, because there's a hypersexual part,
It's relatable. That
right?
widow fire is real.
Right? Or if
Yeah.
somebody said, I went out and could never sleep with anybody again, I'm like, then you had hyposexual trauma response. Like, there's hypo, there's hyper, there's
Mhm.
all these different responses.
Yeah.
And so whether you never want to do it again, whether you do, whether you just want to date, whether you want to love, whether you fall in love again. I mean, one of my friends was like, she's still, she's the one that's married to someone else now. And she'll still have these moments, where she's like just blindsided by something and cry,
Mm.
or grieve over the husband that she had. I think it's really brave to love again,
Yeah.
because you will carry both of them in your heart.
Yeah.
There's no, and that, like, I used to kind of tell my dad, like, there's no, I don't understand. Um, Something in me doesn't it doesn't connect, it doesn't compute. How do you do that? But at the same
Mm.
time, I know logically
Yeah.
that you do. And my dad said, like, love is not a zero-sum game. It's like
Mhm.
you have one child, your heart gets this big. You have another child that gets
Mhm.
this. You have another child that gets that.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? It's not like we
Yeah.
don't have room to do it. And so I have issues, right? I have parts of me that are just plain
Mm.
broken. And
Yeah.
I don't know if they heal, and
Mhm.
it's but I have these other areas that have been so healed and so
Mhm.
strengthened, and like you said, rebar. It's like God has
Mhm.
just got rebar, and I love my life, right?
Mhm.
I think that's true. I really think that's true. I um I appreciate everything immensely. I don't take anything for granted. Um, and there are times where I feel like it's still hard, frankly,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and that's an interesting. It's just an interest. I don't know if I'll ever figure it out totally. Do you think you will?
Ooh, I don't think so. Totally, no.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think it's just surrendering your heart to the Lord and saying like,
Yes.
I want to heal what you want to heal.
Yes.
Um, and being surprised,
Yeah.
with what he'll put his hand on.
Yeah.
I was thinking about what you're talking about with your daughter and um, you know, with my daughter, like I totally relate to that. Like if I can keep going, I can almost like kind of busy myself into being distracted where I'm not, thinking about my grief or whatever. And for me too, it gives me a sense of purpose in a way that makes Micah's loss not feel wasted.
Yeah.
And so that's empowering to me, right? Like I'm not
Yes.
doing it just to like fill Excel spreadsheets, right? Like I legitimately love it and I'm passionate about it, but it can be too much, and I think about my daughter told me the other day, Mom, I love it when we just like cook in the kitchen together,
Oh, I love that.
yeah, and she'll be like, can we go thrifting together? Like she has these little
Yes.
activities and things that she wants to do that aren't quote unquote productive or something, you know
Right.
what I mean? Like I'm not thinking, oh, we're really reconnecting or going through this memory that was hard or something like that, right? But that's the deeper work for me is to be still, right?
Yes.
Like that's harder for
Yes.
me than to go get things done. And so
Yes.
like that, the Lord has his finger on me for like we need to make you feel comfortable to just be, to be
Yes.
present.
That is
And so
100%. And I love because, like you say, when you're going thrifting, I'm like, that's actually probably the most important activity. That's
mhm.
the memory maker,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And
Mhm.
to get your mind shifting, I'm agreeing with you. I see that you're seeing the same thing. It's a paradigm shift that's so important, and it's odd to me that it would even be difficult to do that because
Right.
I'm all about showing up, right? Show up for
Yeah.
the other person, be present with the
Yeah.
other person. But
Mhm.
being present, like watching TV, didn't feel like I was being present with somebody. And I'm
Mhm.
like, oh, it really can be if
Yeah.
you're, like it just,
Mhm.
oh, it feels like there's so much to always learn.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, so I don't think I'll still figure it out. Like and I think too, the dating thing when you talk about like um before you're widowed, the concept of a relationship is that you like delete the last person out of your life,
Yes.
right? Like you get
Yes.
rid of the pictures and you get rid of the love letters and you just like scrub them.
Yes.
But you don't do that when you're
Right.
widowed. And
Yeah.
and I love the person who said he's like you just get another cup. Like you still
Yeah.
have the cup of love for your
Yeah.
one spouse and you still have the cup now for this new person that you
Yeah.
love. And I'm like, I believe that to be true, but I do think like the idea of having a grief day while being with someone else sounds really hard.
Yeah.
Like I'm not being asked to navigate that right now, but like those kind of things where it's like how do you even manage that when they're
Yeah.
like how are you doing and you're like, well, I really miss my other husband.
Right? Yes, that's like, what, how do you do, and what a unique person to be in. I mean, what a
Yeah.
uniquely strong man to be able to say,
Mhm.
I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And
I
I've met
mean,
a lot who are
I'm
like, I don't want
sure.
to play second fiddle in your life. And I'm like, well, you're breathing. Okay. So
Yeah.
you win.
That's
Um,
amazing.
that's really all it takes at this point.
Oh, that's
Um,
amazing. Oh my
but
gosh.
like, if they don't get it, they're not the one. It's not a
Yeah.
good fit, you know.
No.
But to find that person who isn't threatened by it, like that is a unique space.
Yeah, you're so
Yeah.
good at speaking about this, really. Like, I mean, I've talked to different widows, but you really have a gift, honestly, for
Mm,
being authentic and expressing yourself with it. I don't know how much you talk about um, widowhood, but man, you're good at it.
thank you. It's funny. Um, I'm in a group called Never Alone Widows. It's a national ministry, but like I never thought that widows would become some of my favorite people.
Yeah,
Like if they're honest and they do the work, they're some of the most like deep, compassionate, empathetic people you'll ever meet. And just like
yeah,
you said, if your friend came to you and was like, "You know what? I slept around and I blew all my money."
yeah,
Like a good widow will be like, "Girl, I'm here for it. I love
yeah,
you." You
yeah,
know?
exactly.
In a way that people who haven't had that loss would be like, "Well, you're a horrible person," you know?
Right.
And so, yeah, that's been a really sweet healing space for me with other widows and just kind of processing through like, what is this weird journey that we're on somehow and that we never wanted to be here, but the company's pretty great.
Yeah. Oh, that's really good. I love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
because there isn't, like you said, there isn't a book. I mean, there are lots of books on grief, but there's no handbook because they come in different
Mm,
orders and they come at different times and they're all mixed together.
mhm,
And yeah, it's just, and especially when you have kids grieving too,
mm,
right? I mean, they've got their
mhm.
own grief. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for just sharing your heart and being willing to be vulnerable. And I also love that you are turning your passion into purpose with TAC F. That's so cool.
Yeah.
And hopefully people will find that and take advantage of it.
Yeah. No, I hope
And
so.
and then your book, again, your prayers
Prayers
for
for Bears.
bears. That's
Yes.
so cute.
Well, it's Bailey the Grateful Bear, and you'll understand this because it's about Bailey having every night the parents pray with Bailey for the things that they're grateful for. And
Mm,
then there's a day where there's nothing going Bailey's way. And so,
mm.
how does Bailey pray gratitude on a day where there's nothing to
Oh,
be grateful for? And so,
that's
the
so
parents
sweet.
teach Bailey a prayer to pray when there's nothing during the day to be grateful for. Um,
Mm,
a roof over your head, a bed, little bare paws and little bare feet. It's like
mm.
there's a prayer for that, and I think it's important because that's what my kids and I did when we had those days. It was like, thank you for the roof over our head and our food to eat. Thank you for our hands and our feet. There are a lot of people that don't have those,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
um, it's I think it's for all ages really, but the
That's
message is hard one. Yeah,
I mean, needed though, right? Because it is, you relate to that so deeply of how do you stay in a posture of gratitude when, there is nothing to be grateful for
yeah, like
in
all
that
your favorite
moment.
things are gone. Yeah,
Mhm.
everything bad seems to be happening.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm. That's so good.
thank you.
Um TayaKyle.com,
Yes.
right? Anywhere else you want people to
Um,
connect?
well, to support Colton, AmericanSniper.com, and
Perfect.
then just our social media.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. This has been so sweet, and I've loved getting to hear your process and to see how far the Lord has brought you in this
Yeah, no, it's
time.
great to talk with you too. Thank you.
Friends, thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode. You can find me at rachelflick.com. This has been the Hopecast with Rachael Flick.